Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
It's a buzzword nowadays. People say the word mindset a lot. Got to have a certain mindset. What do they mean by that? Is it a positive mindset? More times than not, that's the direction that we're going in. And how do you have that mindset to really move your life forward? Let's dig deeper into that. And normally, I remember everything about somebody in terms of who they are and what they do, but she does so much. I have to look down here at my phone. She is a certified mental health coach, Christian life coach, instructor in the Real You Personality Indicator. She's a ministry leader, on and on and on and on and on. She's great. And she's back with us. So good to have you with us, Cheryl Hines. How's everything?
It's going great. Thanks, Steve, for having me on. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you. And yeah, normally I just remember what somebody's qualifications are. You do so much and help so many people. And I have to believe that a lot of that begins with the right mindset. You probably have shifted your mindset to a point where it is in a positive state. Would you say I'm right about that?
Yes. Yes. So, 14 years ago, I started a journey of learning how to shift who I was and how to think differently. I was broken. I was messed up. I had come from 2 failed marriages and really had to learn how to identify in who I was in a different way of thinking of who I was. And so, taking that to now, currently where I am, walking journeys with people and helping them understand that looking at a glass half full is different than looking at it as half empty. So shifting that mindset is so vitally important for lots of different things in life today, I think.
How do you stay in that mode? I'll give you a great example. I've tried to do that. I think I've been fairly successful in shifting my mindset to a more positive state. But there will be those times where you're driving on the street and somebody cuts you off. And right away, I'm like, right. You react that way. And I'm better at stopping it. So right away, well, maybe not right away, maybe 10 seconds later, it's like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe they were having a bad day. Maybe something happened. Maybe there was a phone call that came through that was life-changing and they weren't even thinking, didn't put their blinker on as they turned in front of you. My point is, how do you stay on that path to keep that shift? Once you've shifted your mindset and you're there, how do you stay there?
Good question. Honestly, I don't always stay there. Recognizing it, I think, is the first key. Recognizing the path that I'm on, the direction that my mind is going to, is key for learning how to then redirect it back into a positive way of thinking. For example, my husband and I both are self-employed, and we own a carpet cleaning business. Well, we're in northern Indiana. This time of year, it starts slowing down. And understanding that we are powerless over how that goes. We're powerless over that business, but what we're not powerless over is what we focus on. Okay, we focus on the fact that God is still good, even though we don't know how many carpet jobs we're going to have in one week. Understanding that this is, that the direction we're going is, we know the direction that God has asked us to go into. And so staying focused on that and not on the negative aspects of, oh, wow, this is a big load. No, God's got it. God is taking care of it. So how to shift that mindset is all about what you focus on. Are you focusing on that person that cut you off and, just really wanting to be angry at him? Or like you said, Steve, are we focusing on, maybe they had a bad day. If I'm at a grocery store and somebody, it looks ugly at me, for a lack of a better term, and they look cross-eyed at me and they look angry, or they might respond angrily, I have a choice. Do I respond back to him or her in an angry way? Or do I think, I wonder what happened? I wonder what's going on with them that is causing them to act the way that they are acting. and then look at it from a different perspective. If I don't get involved in their mess, I'm not going to be bothered by how they respond. So it's all about what I focus on. That glass half empty or that glass half full. I like to look at it as half full.
And you have the control. You said it before that you have the control over everything. Well, okay, let me preface that. Some things you can't control, but you can control how you react to those things that you can't control. And you talk about a positive mindset. Cheryl, what carpet cleaning business? If you put it out into the universe and you stay positive, how do you know you're not going to get a phone call, an email, and somebody says, "Yeah, I own a chain of hotels, and we need somebody to clean our carpets. Would you be interested?" You don't know what's going to happen.
We don't. It's for us with the carpet cleaning. It's called trusting God. For me, in coaching, it's called trusting God. Not everybody has the same faith, and I understand that. But it's about what are we focusing on? Am I going to focus on those good things, or am I going to focus on the negative things? I work a lot with particularly women who are recovering addicts, and that's just where God has placed me right now. And so I work and talk a lot about the addiction and what led them to the addiction. And so many times it's those hurts, it's the trauma of their life, it's the neglect, it's the rejection of their life that took them into the direction of an addict. Okay, now they didn't wake up one day and decide that they were going to be an addict, but they did wake up and decide that they were going to go and take a drug of choice or get whatever to try to numb the pain. So when we look at the choices that they made, and then we look at those broken places of their lives, and we come to allow God to bring healing to those broken places, shifting that mindset, not focusing on the trauma of their past, but focusing on what they have now, focusing on the good things that they have now, focusing on the fact that they have a good job, focusing on the fact that they can have interaction with their children, focusing on the fact that I have a young lady that I work with that she worked hard. She has a Habitat house. That's an incredible achievement for her to have. Focusing on that and not on the trauma of her past. So shifting the focus on what we're focusing on really has a big effect on what we do and how we respond. It's not easy. It's hard work, but it's worthwhile. It's worthwhile.
I'm going to focus for just a moment on what you do in terms of working with women who are addicted. And it could be men, women, doesn't matter. I would assume that they also have substance abuse counseling, but without your counseling in terms of mental health, that probably isn't going to work. The substance abuse, unless we figure out what's going on in their lives, why they're doing what they're doing. Does that sound reasonable?
Correct. I have women that have come from different organizations, like a boot camp organization, and they focus on a lot of different things, but sometimes they don't get down to the nuts and bolts, to those broken places, right, of why they did what they did. Different women that I've come alongside with. One of them who this time of year is really, really difficult for her. 5 years ago. And so I started asking her questions. She mentioned something and I asked her a question, and she mentioned something and I asked her a question. And it's in those questions that it's peeling back, as we say, the layers of the onion.
Sure.
And it's getting down to the core of one of those triggers that caused her to turn to her addiction. Today, this same gal has 10 years sobriety, but she's no longer living in that trauma, and she's actually giving back and working in the community and working with other women. So, it's all about shifting the mindset, looking at those broken places, and really acknowledging what those broken places are, not being afraid to acknowledge it. But then for me, Steve, my focus then is really asking God to come in and give healing to those broken places, to replace that trauma with the positives of who God says they are. And that's where then that shift starts taking place for the women that I work with. Again, I understand that not everybody has the same beliefs that I do, but that for me is really where what we focus on and what is truth.
Lots of questions. So even if you're, no matter what you believe in, be it a God, a universe, spirit, whatever you want to call it, how do you keep your faith? How do you keep your faith strong?
How do I keep my faith strong? I just know who I am. I believe in the God of the universe. I believe that what God says about me is truth. And so I focus on those truths of who he says I am. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you, to give you hope and a future, not to bring you harm." I live in that promise. I live in those truths. And because of that, and because of that's where my rock and my identity is, then I can choose to keep that mindset in the direction that I want it to go in. Am I perfect? No. But from where I was to where I am now, it's my family, my children, my parents, my siblings, anybody who knew me and who knows me now says that I'm a different person. Why? Because of the choices I have made in my own life.
I don't believe in coincidences, and I would have to believe that you're in the position you're in, helping those women for a reason. And you have it in your wheelhouse, and maybe there was nobody else that could really do what you can do. So you were probably put there for a reason. That's where you are now. Let's go back. You said 14 years. For you, you said you went through some challenging times back then.
Mm-hmm.
When did you realize that things are better? Things are okay? How long did it take?
Oh,
And maybe there's
sometimes
different layers, like we said. You can't.
there were multiple layers. So I started Celebrate Recovery 14 years ago, and it was because of a second marriage, and that was worse than my first marriage was. My first marriage, I was married for 21 years. My second marriage, he was in chat rooms and was arrested, and just all sorts of different things. I was totally broken at that point, and just in this really, really bad spot of my life. My daughter-in-law actually said to me one day, she said, "Cheryl, you either stop what you're doing or you're not going to see your grandchildren." Anybody who knows me knows that my children and my grandchildren, I love them dearly, and they're part of my life. They're my world. So I started Celebrate Recovery, and I also did like 4 years of intense counseling. And it's in those two places that I finally was able to be honest about who I am, about those broken places, and why I made the choices that I made. So 4 years into it, really my life started shifting. Okay. 10 years in from that point till now, there's been different shifts in my life of different places that I've gone to that, I felt God directing me into a different place, and or maybe situations that happened. My husband has had a lot of loss and a lot of death, and in learning how to process through that grief, learning how to come out on the other side and not focus on the loss, but on the good memories. So it's been layers upon layer after layer, of when those hard things come to my life, stopping and saying, "Okay, God, what do you want me to learn in this spot? What do you want me to know and to grow and to glean from this spot so that I can be better, not bitter?"
Mm.
It's It's all about that choice of becoming better, or it could become bitter. And I don't want to be bitter. Been there, done that. I want to be better. So when those bad things come my way, processing through them, reaching out to my counselor, talking to my husband, talking to, some of my, like my pastor's wife, some of those people that I really, really trust, and processing through so that I can become better at the end and not bitter. I don't know if I answered your question, but it's been.
And I love that. Better, not bitter. It says it all right there. It's so crystal clear. What's the first step? We talk about shifting our mindset. Obviously, you want to shift it to a positive place. Where do you begin with that? Is it realizing what's going on within you? Sometimes maybe that's not easy to do. I don't know.
I think that's part of it. Yes. Stopping and reevaluating our lives. I mean, so many times we're on one direction because that's what we've always been told we needed to do, or that's what we've always thought we needed to do. But maybe sometimes stopping and pausing, just pausing, reevaluating our lives. What is it in my life that is working right now? What is it in my life that is not working right now? And reevaluating those things. What's important in my life? Is it important that I make $1 million? Well, if so, then I'm going to work hard to achieve that $1 million. Is it important to build community? Then that's what I'm going to focus on. So it's about recognizing where we are, stopping and pausing, looking at what's working and what's not working, whether that's just a job, whether that's family, whether that's even in an addiction, in an addiction. Now, however, in that addiction, sometimes we know that we want out of that addiction. We know that what we're doing is damaging ourselves and others, but yet sometimes we then need to reach out and get help for that addiction so that we can change the direction that we're on. It's all about looking and focusing and shifting, and
you really have to have a sense of yourself, and not all of us have that, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that's where you come in. That's where you're like the mirror. Here you go. It's not being nasty, but it's like, here's what's going on. You realize what's happening here,
right.
And I agree with, layers. I use that one all the time. You peel them back like an onion and see, oh, that's what's going on. There's the reason potentially why you're doing what you're doing.
Right. I met with a gal last night who was really battling with guilt and shame. And so we just looked at what was it about that guilt and shame? Where is that guilt and shame coming from? And so, she's just really listening. And then at some point, depending on what she said, I said, okay, so what about that is causing your guilt and shame? And what it came down to was she didn't feel value. She didn't feel value in herself. And so she felt that she needed to carry the guilt and the shame because she didn't value a certain portion of who she was. And when she recognized that, it was like a light bulb went on, and it was like it shifted, and she was like, oh, okay. Now, I've worked with this gal for quite a long time. So, there's tools that I have given her. And so, I just asked her, have you done A, B, and C? No. Why not? I don't know. Okay, should you do that? Yes, I should. So then she went home and she sent me a text a little while later and she said, okay, I finished it and I feel better. So, it's all about recognizing why you are where you are.
That is so important in terms of value. We all have value. We all can bring value to others, but if we feel that we don't have value, there's a song by Jackson Browne, came out in mid 70s. It was an album cut called "A Fuse," and there's a line in there that says, "The thought of living for nothing strangles the will." Like if you feel that you're not you're living for what? I want to give to people. I don't feel I have that value. I can see easily why somebody might derail and go in a different direction, substance abuse, whatever it might be.
Correct, correct, correct. Again, it's so this particular gal, like I said, I've been working with her for a long time, and helping her unpack and learn how to live in the truth and not in the lie. So, helping her understand, for me, because of coming at as a Christian life coach, talking to her about what her value is in God versus what the person who harmed her and the value what they said to her. So who are you going to listen to? Are you going to listen to the person that hurt you and the lie that said you're not going to be good enough, you're not pretty, you're not smart enough, you're dumb, you're stupid, you might as well just go ahead and use, because you're not going to amount to anything? Or are you going to listen to what God says about who you are? And God says that you're fearfully and wonderfully made. God says you're created in his image. Which are you going to listen to, the lie or the truth? And so helping her understand that when you shift to what truth is, and truth is always that you're not ugly, you're not stupid, you're not dumb. We all have different gifts and abilities in life. It does, I have a sister who is a professor in a college. That's not me. I don't have a master's degree. I would not want to teach college algebra. I would rather puke than teach college algebra.
Same.
But that's her strength. That's not mine. And so we each, and helping her understand, or anybody understand, that shifting that mindset, going back to that personality, that people skills personality, the real you, that first line of defense, understanding this is how God made you. This is the personality that God has created in you. So shifting the focus from, well, I don't like that personality, to shifting it to, well, this is really who you are. This is how God made you. So again, those tools, those shifting, that identifying of really who God is in our lives. And again, because of who I am. So it's just, it's a challenge, but it's great. I love it.
So you mentioned God here, and I'm just kind of curious, in your journey, which we'll call it 14 years ago, where you realize things aren't the way they should be, got to make some changes. Was God incorporated in your life then, or was it somewhere thereafter?
No, I've been in the church my whole life. So I knew all the answers, or so I thought, but I really wasn't willing to look at those broken places. I had always thought I was never one of them. I was not an addict. I was not somebody who drank, smoked, did drugs. I was never one of them. And I quickly realized that I was one of them, even though I didn't do drugs, drink, or smoke. I was one of them because my mindset, where I was at, how I felt about myself was broken. It was messed up. I was beat down. I thought I was no good. I thought I had no value. I thought I had nothing to offer to anybody. So I had to shift that. So even if you're in the church, you can still have that mindset of that broken place. Even if you're in the church, you can still be an addict. There are many people who secretly do drugs or drink or smoke or, any of the other things, vices that are out there that they do, even though they're in the church. So I was in the church. I had to learn how to shift what I focused on, who I was, who God said I was. Just totally shift that around.
Isn't it interesting? We have literally seconds left, but I just find it fascinating that you came from that world, maybe not the addiction side of it, but having those challenges of not having value in yourself and the other things you talked about. And you're helping women now going through that. How fantastic is that? I mean, that's like, it doesn't happen just because. There was a reason that happened. I firmly believe that.
I agree. I totally agree with you. Totally agree with you.
Nobody would be able to connect with them in the layers and the way that you do, because you walked it, you talked it, you
Right.
lived it. So you might get into their heads so much easier than anybody else might. We are at just about out of time, which just like flies like that. Normally we take a break too. We didn't even take a break. If this resonates with somebody, they're going through something, maybe somebody they know, they can reach out to you on your website. What's the best way?
They can. Give me the website. Did you say give me the website? Give you the website? Yeah. Okay. It's Insight Life Coaching.coachsolutions.cc. So Insight Life Coaching.coachsolutions.cc.
If somebody didn't get that, is there a phone number?
Yes, there is.
I just throw that out there if that's, if you're comfortable with that.
I am. And so I have a business phone number that I just got. So I had to put my, my granny glasses on here. So 574-501-3361. So it's 574-501-3361.
Glasses or not, you're still amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Really. And keep on doing what you're doing. And Cheryl is here to help. She's here. And you've got the insight and the faith and the positive mindset. So it's all there. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Same here. All right. We'll be right back.
Bye-bye.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.